Users online 2327. Users online 2330. Users on.
Okay, Nancy, you are on.
All right. Hi, everybody. Oh, my goodness. The world of a visually impaired person. Behind the scenes, Ava and I had a lot happening, but I'm so excited to be here with all of you, truly. Gotta have a lot of humor when you have vision loss, but I'll just kind of take you back just a little bit. So I am Nancy Solari. I am the founder and CEO of Living Full Out, and proud of that because, gosh, if I go back down memory lane, as a little girl, 16 years old, eye doctor looked at me and looked at my mom and my middle sister, my oldest sister, I'm the youngest. And she basically told, or he, the doctor, told my mom that all of us would be going blind. Specifically, he looked at me and said, "You're probably going to go blind by 40, just absolutely do the best you can with, the sight you have." And then from there, it was just really a crazy time and really a gulp moment, I would say. One of the things that I had to think about at that moment, being 16 and being told you're going to go blind by 40, is all of a sudden you see your literally future flash past you. And one of the things that was really tricky for me was, I was only 16. I didn't know what my career was going to be. I didn't know, what that future would look like. Would Mr. Right come my way early? Would he come later? But I'll tell you what, my middle sister, her name is Susan, she and I took it on as a life challenge. It was game on. Our grandparents said, if you study a language, we will send you there. So I had taken Japanese for 7 years. My middle sister had taken it for 4. And we packed our bags and we went to Japan. And that was truly an amazing experience. Got to wear a kimono and all that. Now, again, you have to understand that's where the vision started to kind of diminish. And I remember being out in Japan, literally at this sacred tea ceremony, and they're passing around this cake and it gets to me and you're supposed to slice it and it's very, very, very quiet. Everyone's looking at you. And I went and I cut it and it was dark. I couldn't see where I was cutting it. And pretty much the entire dessert fell on the floor. It was like and I'm pretty sure it was a first. But that was the first for me of many moments of gulp, kill me now, how small can I make myself moments. And sometimes those gulp, how small can I make myself moments, those are defining ones, because then we either decide, you know what, I'm going to be the hero of my life. And on those really dark days, I'm going to pick myself up and I'm going to, warrior through or crack the code or be my best cheerleader. Or a lot of times when life gives us a dose of a bad medical condition or a heartbreak, something devastating, we go into that dark place where we want to go into denial or we want to go into, put your hands up, right? Wave the white flag. Well, I wasn't going to do that. That tea ceremony was a gift to me. It showed me how I rallied beyond that moment and needed to. Now, the thing is, my vision kept getting worse. Yes, that was 16 that I was diagnosed, and that tea ceremony experience happened shortly after. We'll call it 17. But the vision just kept on changing. Literally every couple of years, it would change. And the thing that was so heartbreaking for me is just not being able to verbalize what I was seeing or what I was not seeing. And sometimes we fake it till we make it. Now, that brings me to the gondola ride story, which I had in the article I had on Better Humans, which really was another game changer and a life-defining moment for Nancy. I was on the second date with this guy. His name was Gabe. He was handsome, really good looking. On the first date, though, I was able to kind of hide my vision loss. We were kind of at his place in a restaurant. It was all just kind of, safe and secure, and I didn't really have to go into it. But then on our second date, he's like, I've got a surprise for you. And I'm thinking, I love surprises. But where did he take me? He took me on what was a romantic, truly gondola ride. This is where there's a man rowing the boat, and we were going through just Little Naples area, and it should have been just such a yummy, beautiful, romantic experience. Well, I didn't know what was going to happen, right? So when we got to the parking lot, pitch dark, and he told me this is what we were going to do, he starts loading up my hands with some bottle of champagne and, hey, can you carry the blankets? I'll take the strawberries. I'll take this. I'll take that. I'm like, sure. I'm dying. I'm literally dying. I don't even know what to say. And it's just not the right time to blurt out, I'm legally blind. So we get to the top of the ramp and I had to make a decision. He wanted me to go first, being the gentleman he was. But then I was like, no, you go first. Somehow I caught the glimpse on his dark hair, the moon. And I thought, no, Nancy, you can do this. If he just follows down the ramp and you follow that moon shining on his hair, this will all work out. And I know he's going to get to the bottom of the ramp and maybe I can take his arm. Well, we got to the bottom of the ramp and he did not give me his arm. I think he just figured I could just keep on going. And I did. I literally walked right off the dock, right into these super cold, dark waters. Now, truly, I could have been seriously hurt, meaning that, it could have been any situation. I could have, stepped off onto a platform and broken my leg or my neck. I could have walked off onto I don't know, maybe a part of a boat, a motor. It could have been really scary. But in fact, it worked out because the gondola ride guy said, well, gosh, this has never happened before. And in my mind, as I'm in the cold waters, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, he obviously hasn't met Nancy before. It was just really scary, but also very cold. They fished me out of the water. And again, I had a decision to make. Inside, I'm super dying. And it taught me that I needed to get my ego out of the way, that I needed to be more honest early on with somebody. I mean, what was he going to do? Go running for the hills just because I have bad vision? Well, early on in a relationship, when you're trying to look good, that sometimes is what we think. But I did mention, gosh, I'm so sorry, I don't see well at night. And I rallied and I was soaking wet. I wrapped a blanket around me and I was off to the races. And the thing is, it was a romantic night and one that was special in the way of that date, but also special in that it kicked off my need to just be more honest. Now, here's the thing. We can tell ourselves that, but then again, life will scoop up another experience. So it didn't work out with Dave and I. He was a really nice person, just not exactly in perfect alignment. So fast forward a couple months later, I'm on another date. And this was a romantic French bistro. And this time it was actually close to my house. So I navigated over there a little bit early. I told the hostess, hey, I'm visually impaired. And, is there somewhere that's well lit? That was a completely dark restaurant, but is there somewhere somewhat well lit? And, when I ordered the drink, could you just kind of show me or tell me where it is? So when I have the wine, I can grab the stem at the bottom and fill the glass. And she's like, no problem. Again, because this person, well, I had maybe mentioned that I didn't see well. Now that's anyone with glasses and contacts doesn't see well, right? I just hadn't quite used the words blind, legally blind, or visually impaired. Because again, it was maybe like our third date. So he shows up, we're chatting, we're having a good time. And I went with safety. I went with salmon. I thought, you know what? Hey, I can scoop up mashed potatoes, a green bean, and the salmon pretty easy. And so the dinner came. And I was ready. I was starving actually because I hadn't eaten much that day. And I went and I took my fork and I stabbed it into what I thought was the salmon, but maybe it was just tough salmon. I don't know. So I jam it in there a little bit further and I break it apart. And I'm sure he's looking at me like, wow, she's really manhandling that salmon. But I ended up breaking it apart and I put it in my mouth. Now, to my surprise, and I love salmon, it was not salmon. It was a whole half a lemon. Yes, that's right. I can only imagine what he was thinking, looking at me like, did my date just eat a half a lemon? Is she some lemon freak? I mean, but now I had this, really cringed face. I could, barely see anything. I was just squinted eyes. I was really having an experience. Well, I had to eventually segue to kind of spitting some of it out into my napkin. And honestly, I'm glad I did because, again, we went on to have a good date. I went into swallowing my pride, just a wedge, and stepping into being more honest. And when I did, I actually found out that vision loss had ran in his family. So it kind of opened us up. And where I go with all this is because humor is part of it, but being vulnerable is another part of it. And sometimes we have to be willing to be vulnerable. We have to be willing to step out there and trust that just because we may have vision loss, just because we may be bald, just because we may not have the best clothes, whatever we think that thing is that we might be judged for, I think sometimes we just have to trust the people on the other end that they will love us or appreciate us just the way we are. And I will tell you that over the time, my vision loss got worse and worse and worse. I gave up driving at 24. I had to learn how to use a white cane. And then eventually I got to getting a guide dog. His name is Frost, and truly he is the love of my life. I'm currently still single, but if I could find a two-legged Frost, I would have it all, right? But I am telling you, this dog is super special, and he guides me everywhere I want to go. And when we get to a curb, he waits. He allows me to step up, and I'm moving on quite safely. He stops at every street. He can't read suite numbers. He can't read me the menu, but that's okay. Frost is great. But for guide dogs, when they're working and they're wearing their harness, which right on his says Guide Dogs for the Blind, which I thank them every day for giving me the handsome boy. There's so many people that don't know what to do with that. Sometimes people respect the fact that he's working and they don't come up to us and they don't touch him. Others run up, and sometimes they will even let their dog off the leash to run up, and then it's a whole lot of crazy and chaos. And then other people sometimes don't know what to do with someone who's visually impaired. I mean, a lot of times I fall into that senior category because, and I love my seniors, because I don't see, and sometimes they don't see. And thankfully I can hear, and I know sometimes as we get older, we can't hear, But there was this moment one time where this guy was surprised I was so young, and he thought maybe I was a puppy raiser, like I was training the dog. And I said, no, he's my dog, and I love him so much. But that guy was like, no way. How many fingers am I holding up? That's right. He actually asked me, being legally blind, I couldn't even see his face. I couldn't even make out really who he was. And he's asking me to tell him how many fingers. It was a funny moment for me because I realized just how clueless he was. So sometimes funny is the chuckle. It's the eating the lemon. It's the walking off a dock. But sometimes the chuckle in life is being able to see the full circle of it all. I realized in that moment that, I may not have the best vision in the world. I may be legally blind. Let's say that word, blind with pride, right? But at the same time, one of the things is that you have to be able to look at different situations and not make everything our own fault. In that way, I actually was more proud of me and Frost. I was like, we can't see your fingers and we don't really care to play the game anyway, but thank you for inviting us. And the thing is I hope that within each of your lives today, as I'm just talking out these stories, I hope you see humor in what you're going through. It is so important. And that is why when I created Living Full Out, my company, I just want people to get out there and push those obstacles, push those hurdles, those insecurities aside, take your power back and get out there and rock it. Now, I do love to rock it. Okay. One of my favorite things in the whole wide world is karaoke. I love it. I just love it. Now, I did sing growing up a bit. I had done the national anthem here and there. But karaoke to me is where I get to step out there, and sometimes I might sing a country song like Lone Star Amazed. I love it. Sometimes I might belt out Whitney Houston or sing a country song, but there are many times where I, will ask somebody to help me, usually the person I'm with. They'll walk me up there, they'll hand me the mic, and sometimes I'm turned perfectly towards the audience because they do that for me. But sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I just as I grabbed the mic, I think I might just get a little bit twisted. And I remember one time being at this really loud karaoke bar. It was a Mexican restaurant full of people, everyone having a great time. And I'm like, I'm going to sing Britney. Whoops, I did it again. And my friend got me up there. The mic was in my hand. The song was going. I was belting it. I was having so much fun. And after the song ended, I said to my friend, it was cheering and all that. It was good. After I got to my friend, she was laughing. And I go, oh my gosh, was my performance funny? And she goes, Nancy, I couldn't stop you. Somehow you got turned around and literally the entire bar with all the people were on one side and you were just singing your heart out to the empty side of the room. And now I understood why she was laughing. I can only imagine. And then again at karaoke, one Christmas, my family and I are together, and I'm going to get out there and sing Whitney Houston, I'll Always Love You, right? Such a romantic song. And I was really feeling it. I thought, man, this is going to go great. Good Christmas tune. You know, it's holidays, it's magical, it's warm. So I got up there and my mom actually put me up there and I was positioned right where the audience was. But there's this bouncy little I guess it was a Santa Claus. I couldn't really tell, but it was bouncing around. So I think I turned to kind of look at it, but then I got all off again. And I started singing Whitney Houston, I'll Always Love You. I was just belting it out. And then again, my mom comes up after my performance and she is laughing. She just can't stop laughing. And I'm like, what's wrong? It was such a great song. It was a romantic song, a love song, a song about a breakup. And she goes, oh my gosh, Nancy, it was hilarious. You were passionately singing I'll Always Love You, Whitney Houston, to the Santa Claus, and he was loving it. He really felt your emotion and probably wanted to kiss you at the end. And at the end of that, I said to myself, well, you know what? That is okay. If the rest of my karaoke days are singing to empty rooms and to a much needed Santa Claus who needed some love that night, then so be it. But it wasn't going to stop Nancy from being Nancy, from getting out there and having a good time. And again, that's where we have to have a sense of humor, right? We can't be so rigid and worried that it's about looking good or, oh my gosh, I'm going to say the wrong thing or I'm going to embarrass myself and sing to an empty room. Well, I can proudly say I've done it. After you've eaten a lemon, you've sang to an empty room in an inflatable Santa Claus, after you've walked off a dock, you know, pretty much from there, sky's the limit, right? You know, you can't go down deeper. Well, actually you can. The stories can keep going all day, but I know we only have a short time. So I just want to make sure that as we journey through your life, that you recognize those times where maybe it's not you, maybe it's just funny. You're not flawed. There's no imperfections. You are just an awesome original. And that is what I have learned about myself. Now, you know, there's always going to be things that happen that are awkward, right? Oftentimes I will take an Uber and a Lyft, right, to get around because no one wants the blind girl driving on the roads. And it's funny how when I get in the car, I do tell them that I'm visually impaired just so that they know that, you know, I can't show them landmarks or direct them to where I'm going. Hopefully their GPS is a good one. But it's always funny to me how, yes, I'm visually impaired, but they'll quietly whisper, they'll say something like, do you need help? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. They're whispering. I don't know if they think I'm Helen Keller or what, but they think that because I can't see, I also can't hear. Now, I look at those as opportunities. What are opportunities? They are the moments that you educate people. Right? So sometimes I take those as moments where I do a bonding, not like I'm schooling them, but I just want to let them know, you know, maybe what visually impaired is versus what legally blind is versus what blind is. And just say it in my Nancy way. And it generally comes across with love. But then they come away going, gosh, you know, I don't even know why I whispered to you. You're right. You can't see. You can completely hear. And you know, it's these big leaps and jumps that I'm sharing with you. These have taken, you know, decades to come up with. Now, the biggest lesson I would say of all is when I was selling real estate. And I was so good at real estate. I loved it. I mean, I felt really proud and it's so much gratitude to be able to help people have the biggest purchase of their life. And I got to be a part of it. I got to be the one to negotiate it, find it for them. That was an honor, truly. But I started real estate when I could drive, when I could see, and I could see paint colors, and I could see cracks in the foundation. But over the 13 years I was in real estate, my vision got incredibly worse. I had to give up driving, where I would take anywhere between 2 to 12 buses in a day showing property. That's right, my clients would have their luxury mobile, right? Mercedes, BMW, or more. But I would take the bus because back in the day when I was selling real estate, they didn't have Ubers and Lyfts. It was either walk, bus, drive, or cab. And cabs weren't always available when I needed them. So I would, call 1-800-COMMUTE, and I would put together what that plan was going to be for the day. And I would get there early, memorize every step, turn on every light, show the property. My clients would take off, and then I would walk back to the bus stop and get on my next bus. Well, at some point, though, my clients started to ask me, Nancy, are you okay? I mean, I was bumping into walls. I was missing steps. I was falling flat on my face. And I would fall on my face and I would be laughing. I know it seems painful, but I would be laughing because it's so signature Nancy. But for others, they didn't get it. At some point, I had to be vulnerable. I had to put the ego aside. I even had to just find a place to step into a new Nancy. Who is she going to be? So I actually started talking to some of my clients, my real estate clients, and telling them that, the reason why my assistant was driving and not me was because I had suffered some vision loss. And, hey, the reason why I'm bumping on the walls and missing steps is because of that legally blindness within me now. And so many of them were so loving. They were like, oh, Nancy, I wish you had told me. I'll drive. And then I started thinking, hey, with all my new clients, the best way to get to know a neighborhood is they drive too, like get lost in your neighborhood, right? So it was truly a game changer. And so sometimes we just have to have faith in not just the process, not just, the fact that cures and great remedies and services and things are available to us, but also trust that people are going to love us through hard moments. And who loves me through my hard moments is my guide dog Frost and my 10-pound Chihuahua Charlie. Oh my gosh, I love those boys. I feel like I birthed them myself. They are just so sweet. Well, it's not uncommon that I will show up somewhere and someone will say, so do you have dogs? And they say it actually sarcastically. And I'm like, yeah, how did you know? And it's usually because I'm wearing my dogs. Literally, they are both yellow and white, and I love wearing dark colors. So all of a sudden, here I am wearing dog all over me. Now, again, that might make someone go, oh my gosh, I should change my sweater or I should change my shirt. Nope, I wear that dog hair with pride. I am a fur mom through and through, always will be. And you know what? Hey, I'm sure my own hair is sprinkled on my clothing as well because I got long hair. And, on those days when we feel just like the weight of the world is on our shoulders, and it's really hard to find that laugh, that chuckle, that moment, I want you to think about just the fact that it's okay sometimes to have surrender. It's okay sometimes to have bad days. I can be here with you today and tell you all these things and laugh about them, but there are times that I hit my head against a wall. And I don't know about you guys if you've ever hit your head before, but it is like a total crime scene. One little nick and it's like blood all over the place. I've done that. And I don't drive, right? So my feet are my primary transportation. And there's times I've twisted my ankle and I've been like, oh no, what if I have to be on crutches? So not every day is going to be easy. And when you have one of those days, that is a hard day. You know what? Sometimes I just call it a day. And sometimes you need to soothe yourself and comfort yourself. And that might be, for me, cuddling up, watching a Hallmark. For you, maybe it's reading the Bible. Maybe it's calling a friend that's very empathetic. Maybe it is yummy mac and cheese that never goes wrong, right, on those hard days. But it's just really important that you be good to yourself, because humor is humor, right? We can always find the funny in things, but on the days that you're struggling to find the funny, surrender to that a bit. give respect to that, but don't let it last long. It is really important that when you're having a day that you maybe call it a day early, maybe you don't work so hard that day, maybe you go to bed early, but you start the next day fresh with vigor, with excitement. Because the thing is we have the ability to lock ourselves in a prison where it is dark, where it is cold, where we feel like we're starving for social and starving for fun and, that light, that bright that the world has. Or we can be our own light. We can turn that page. We can be our own inspiration. I think that family and friends, and even Ava, who's helping me today behind the scenes here with all of this, people can be the wind beneath our wings. People can be our eyes when we can't see. People can give us that a girl, that a boy, when we need to hear them, because maybe we don't believe it for ourselves. But it's really important that as you leap away from today's session, that you think about, gosh, where in your life could you be more honest? Could you be more vulnerable? So that you don't eat lemons and you don't walk off docks. Because you know what? I bet the people in your life would be inspired by what you have to share. I think that was honestly the biggest learning I've ever had in this entire experience. I mean, I'm in my 40s now, and I got diagnosed at 16, so I've been walking this walk for a while. But one of the things that I realized most is that, I have to be proud of vision loss. I have to be proud of the journey it gave me. I mean, after all, I don't see wrinkles. I don't see gray hair. Now, plenty of people in my life will tell me, Nancy, you've got a wrinkle. You've got some gray hair. But I don't see it. And especially when I go on dates with guys, that's a super plus. Now, I can feel their handsome arms, right? I do love the texture of voice, right? But for me, it's not about the looks. I don't see color. I don't see race. I don't see homeless. And when you don't have that, life is very liberating. It is about that person's voice. It is about the texture of their embrace, their hugs, their high fives, their fist bumps, their handshakes. It is about their presence and who they are. Well, you know what? Just like I have mine and I choose humor, you have yours. And maybe humor's not your thing. Maybe your thing is just being that wind beneath your wings for someone else. Maybe your thing is being of service. Maybe your thing is that you're a good listener. Everybody has them. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, I could never be doing a session like this with Nancy. I don't know what I would say. I bet within you, there are so many stories. Personally, I'd love to hear them. But the only way we can really embrace those stories and get to being at a place where we find the funny, where we can be, happy and proud of ourselves, is that vulnerability. And the thing I've learned also about it is when I sit down with people, and I'm now just very open and honest about being visually impaired or legally blind, however I tell it to them, a lot of times they will open up to me. They'll be like, oh my gosh, I understand. I've hearing loss in 60% of my ear. Wow. Or I understand my husband, actually, he's a paraplegic, and we'll talk about that. And so there's a lot of good bonding in how we all are survivors, how we all are warriors, how we all are crack the coders. And I really believe that there is a speaker, an author in all of us. Well, I did write my article about having humor while being visually impaired, and I'm so glad that that was well received by so many. I want you to leap away and write today. I want you to find one thing that is so funny about your life and write it down. And then you know what? Tomorrow, write down something else, and then write down something else. And pretty soon you will be here on this special day, just like I am. And next year, I get to come to your session. And not to say that everybody has to be authors, everyone has to be speakers, but at the truth of it, I just really want you to embrace you. I want you to get out there and live full out. And it starts with, number one, being vulnerable and being honest. I guess if I had done that early on, who knows where Gabe and I would be, right? Who knows? Maybe I would have never walked off that dock. But at the same time, we have to sometimes just know that, life washes over us and we do the best we can. And so with that comes just putting yourself out there, truly living life full out. And so I encourage all of you to go to livingfullout.com. We have a national radio show where we share a lot of inspirational stories, people who have overcome poverty and homelessness and have gone on to do amazing things, people who fly planes with no arms, people who have been through traumatic accidents yet really have rallied despite it, people who have been convicted of crimes and then all of a sudden after 20 years in prison they get out and they're set free. So have fun, get out there and live full out.
Users online 2304.
Thank you for listening.
Site alert notifications 2 collapsed. Announcement dialog closed. One Nancy Solari.